You're quick.
A good thing, too.
Why you wearing a mask? Were you burned by acid or something like that?
Oh, no, it's just they're terribly comfortable. I think everyone will be wearing them in the future.
Why you wearing a mask?
Oh, no, it's just they're terribly comfortable. I think everyone will be wearing them in the future.
There were lots of questions that came in regarding GMOs. A lot of people want to know how you balance the opportunity to address food scarcity with the concerns that many have around GMOs.
Right, so genetically modified organisms, that's where you create a new seed by using some biological approach that changes the gene. One example is you can put a gene in that prevents the plant from getting disease. And so a disease that's wiping out the crops of poor people and causing tens of thousands to starve, you can get rid of that. The techniques we're using here were actually invented for human medicine. And in the case of human medicine, we don't have a total ban on all drugs that are created this way, nor do we have a total acceptance. What we do is each drug gets created, it's trialed, and then each country has scientists who look at, okay, what are the benefits and what are the risks of that new drug, and they decide. And it's a very sophisticated system that's trying to maximize human welfare. For plants, it's going to be the same. That is, to a priori say, no, we don't want that seed that blocks disease, that's dooming the poorest to never have this kind of tool. And it'd be ironic, since many of these advances are creating things like drought tolerance that poor people only need because rich people have been emitting so much CO2 that the climate conditions are worse for those poor people. Now, making sure that there's that scientific depth so that they can analyze crop by crop, that's something that the foundation is helping to invest in, but each country will have its own decisions. And there are in the pipeline some fantastic crops that need to be looked at. We have decades of experience where rich countries have used GMOs. Some countries like South Africa, Burkina Faso, Egypt are using some GMOs right now. But the big wins are ones that come later, and each of those should be looked at as a special case, not ruled out or ruled in based on the general perception.
GMOs have now been a staple in American diets for 20 years, yet most Americans still don't know what they are or how they affect our food supply. Do you know what a GMO is?
No.
A GMO. What's a GMO?
I know it stands for genetically modified organism. Is that it? GMO? I think so.
I always ask myself, what the heck is that? And I still have no idea.
Dr. Robert Fraley was one of the original creators of GMOs for Monsanto in the early 90s, which has now turned into the largest manufacturer of GMO seeds and Roundup, a controversial weed killer for crops. Today, GMOs account for nearly 80% of conventional processed food.
Do you think we're overdoing it with GMOs?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated, and sometimes it's confusing because, on the one hand, I'd say almost everything we eat has been genetically modified.
But many non-GMO activists disagree, saying GMOs were created solely for profit.
Almost all of the GMOs that are on the market today have been engineered to do one thing, and that is to survive when sprayed with a chemical herbicide. So the primary herbicide that they've been engineered to be used with is glyphosate. Glyphosate, just this year, the World Health Organization classified it as a probable carcinogen. So most GMO foods that you eat have been sprayed by a chemical that's likely to cause cancer.
What do you say about that?
I'd say it's absolutely untrue. So glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, and probably most people have used Roundup to control weeds in their garden. Roundup is absolutely safe, and it's not a carcinogen. And the regulatory agencies who have the responsibility for regulating it, like the EPA, like the Canadian regulatory authorities, the authorities in Europe, have all studied glyphosate extensively and concluded that it's non-carcinogenic.
Megan Westgate, director of the nonprofit The Non-GMO Project, says biotech companies get away with it because they have power and money.
One of the biggest concerns that I have is that the top 3 biotech companies now own almost half of the world's seed supply. That's a lot of control for just a few corporations to have over something that every single human being depends upon for their survival.
So you feel comfortable with eating GMOs all day long, feeding it to your family? There's no concerns that you personally have?
Absolutely. I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids. As a scientist, I've looked at all the studies and data. As a dad, I've thought about it.
Fraley says his only regret is not educating consumers sooner, and is now trying to change that.
I'm personally involved in Twitter. You can follow me at Rob Fraley and follow that. As a company, we've voluntarily published our data and our science, increased dramatically the transparency.
I'm Jade Scipione for FoxBusiness.com.
So our vision is you can have a small, we call it a bioreactor, but it's a fancy name for a pressure cooker, honestly, like your bread maker or something like that can maintain temperature and right conditions for your cells and your nutrient solution. And at the end of a couple of weeks, you can grow your own meat for your own family. It's kind of like this miracle cell of sorts that can form everything in your body, but it needs the right trigger to make that happen. So we essentially feed them with a liquid nutrient, a mix of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, very similar to what the animal would eat itself. But because the cells don't have a digestive system, you have to give them a very simple ingredient mix. Like I mentioned, meat is grown in this liquid. Right now, that ingredient, I call it soup, nutrient soup, is only made by pharmaceutical companies.
Bill Gates has been snatching up 242,000 acres of farmland across the US, enough to make him the top private farmland owner in America. According to the Land Report, the tech billionaire has been purchasing agricultural land for years, building a massive portfolio of farmland in 18 states. His largest holdings are more than 69,000 acres in Louisiana, almost 48,000 acres in Arkansas, and about 20,500 acres in Nebraska. Additionally, he has a stake in 25,750 acres of traditional land in Phoenix, Arizona, which is being developed as a new suburb. It's not clear how Gates' farmland is being used or whether any of the land is being set aside for conservation. This is not Gates' only foray into agriculture. In 2008, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation announced $306 million in grants to promote high-yield, sustainable agriculture among farmers in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. The foundation also invested in the development of supercrops resistant to climate change and higher-yield dairy cows.
Looking at Soylent Green all natural crackers. Down below, people food. Of course, we've got some hands going on down below there. Soylent Green. Anybody seen the movie? For those who haven't, definitely go and check it out. Charlton Heston, great movie. Here we've got these Soylent Green all natural crackers. Again, made with high energy plankton. On the side, we at the Soylent Corporation know that in 2022, nothing runs anymore and nothing works. But the people are the same and need the same things. We are committed to getting you, the people, what you need the most. Soylent Green.
And giving it back to you, the people. And we give it back to you, the people.
welcome back. Would you eat your favourite takeaway if it was made in a laboratory? The thought of 3D printed nuggets might not sound appetising, but scientists say you won't be able to taste the difference.
There's only one Kentucky Fried Chicken, always cooked fresh, with Colonel Sanders' original secret recipe of 11 different herbs and spices.
Until now. For in this Russian lab, your next tasty KFC meal is being prepared. Just finishing off some seafood for another customer first. This one is a squid. Yes, KFC has partnered with Russian scientists to develop lab-made chicken nuggets.
Shut up and take my money.
Hot on the heels of fake meat, now comes a plethora of pantry palatables.
Spinach, broccoli, chicken, salmon, kind of just runs the gamut. We were experimenting with a lot of new ingredients as well.
Welcome to the future.
Your printable food comes safely packaged in cartridges.
Finger licking good.
I face a laboratory and a kitchen, as long as it's clean.
Wouldn't put you off?
Simply take some cells from a real chicken, multiply them in the lab into a paste, and gently place that into a printer, similar to the one in your home office. Turn that paste into sheets, and layer upon layer, turn those sheets into cubes. Presto! You've got chicken nuggets.
I'm gonna go get some KFC nuggets.
Stand around a KFC long enough, like I did today, and you'll learn.
Would you eat them if they were made in a lab? Yeah.
I don't see why not, no.
People aren't put off by it.
Yeah, I would.
If they tasted the same, what's the difference?
You wouldn't know, you wouldn't be able to tell. Personally, I'd probably prefer it. Well, Joanna, I'm guessing you've never had one of those.
No, I haven't.
Joanna McMillan is a nutritional scientist.
Why are we making food in a lab now?
Well, we have two big problems. One is environmental and sustainability kind of issues. And the second is creating enough meat to feed the world's growing population.
Would there be nutritional value in something that's made in a lab?
Well, no, there's not. And that's what's a little frustrating for me, is why don't we think about recreating meat in the lab, but also make it healthier? And that's what's not happening.
There's no substitute for real chicken.
Adam Stratton is a proud old-fashioned butcher. You remember the ones who used to cut up, not create, meat.
There'd be a difference in texture, the taste, and, like natural. How can you go past natural products?
He won't be finger-licking, and I also suspect an old colonel might be turning in his grave.
Good chicken.
Next, they'll be telling us those yummy crab sticks aren't... Oh, hold on a second.
Whether or not they make it in a lab or not doesn't bother me.
You'd still eat it?
Yeah.
What is the secret of Soylent Green? This question was posed many times in the trailer you just watched for a movie that came out back in the 1970s, 73 to be exact, and I am doing this video on an old movie for the main purpose of showing you just how long the same kind of propaganda has been going for decades. I'm sure there were movies before this that were coming to say the same kinds of things. In fact, I did a video breakdown on a trailer for the movie The Thinning, which is a more recent adaptation, I would say, of movies of this nature, where if any of you saw the movie itself, it showed major UN propaganda at the beginning, talking about overpopulation, that resources are being depleted, that the earth needs to be restored, and that they have come up with this aptitude test in order to thin out the people who do not pass. And of course, there was corruption involved with that, where the elites were getting away, where students who were actually smart were being thinned out. They literally wanted to keep the dumb people around and people who had connections to the elites, so that I guess they could keep dumbing down the people. But again, it was all about population control and climate change and the environment and all the same kind of propaganda that we are shown over and over and over again. And so what I want to show you here today is not even breaking down any symbolism, but more to show you how many movies, and I'm not even going to get into all the movies because there's just so many of them, but how long and how many times we have been shown the same theme of climate change, of overpopulation, the same Luciferian doctrine that the elites want to push onto us, that it's basically mankind's fault for even breathing, that we are ruining the environment and that the climate is changing, but really it is all them doing it. And right from this poster, we can see that some funny symbolism or numbers. It's the year 2022. You know, guys, that's not too much farther away.
Not doing it will be catastrophic. We'll have 8 degrees, we'll be 8 degrees hotter in not 10, but in 30 or 40 years, and basically none of the crops will grow. Most of the people will have died, and the rest of us will be cannibals. Civilization will have broken down. What the few people who are left will be living in a failed state like Somalia or Sudan, and living conditions will be intolerable. The droughts will be so bad there'll be no more corn growing. Not doing it is suicide. Just like dropping bombs on each other, nuclear weapons is suicide. So we've got to stop doing the two suicidal things, which are hanging on to our nuclear weapons
and global
and then after that we've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
so what's wrong with the population? I mean,
with too many people. That's why we have global warming. We have global warming because too many people are using too much stuff. But if there were less people, they'd be using less stuff.
2 billion is about right. Go figure, the 222 right there. But it says people are still the same. They'll do anything to get what they need, and they need Soylent Green. So really depicting a scene of desperation, that people are going to be rioting, that people are going to be in panic. There's even got riot control police all over the place. You got people running. And, you know, this same kind of theme of chaos, of New World Order, of controlling the population, same kind of thing being shown to us for many years now. And, you know, on IMDb says that in the world ravaged by the greenhouse effect and overpopulation, there's that infamous word, overpopulation, an NYPD detective investigates the murder of a big company CEO. So I'm assuming the CEO is of the Soylent Green company, and we will get into that as we look at even Wikipedia and talk about, which talks about the plot of this story, which again was done in 1973, so quite a long time ago. So according to the plot, the 20th century's industrialization led to overcrowding, pollution, and global warming due to the greenhouse effect. So they are, you know, in essence trying to say to us that it's your fault, mankind, you're breathing out too much carbon dioxide and you are causing the temperatures to rise. When in reality, true science will tell you that our environment needs carbon dioxide to survive, and that we actually only produce literally not even 3 or 4% of that. So it's really a lie that they've just fabricated into making people believe this and pushing this nonsense onto us. But anyways, in the year 2022, which again is not that far from now, 40 million people live in New York City. Housing is dilapidated. Homeless people fill the streets. Many are unemployed. Those few with jobs are only barely scraping by, and food and working technology are scarce, with most of the population surviving on rations produced by the Soylent Corporation. Their latest product is Soylent Green, a green wafer advertised to contain high-energy plankton from the world ocean, more nutritious and palatable than its predecessors red and yellow, but in short supply. Keep that world ocean term in mind. The NYPD detective Frank Thorne lives with his aged friend and police analyst Solomon Saul Roth. Saul remembers life before its current state and often waxes nostalgic. So it looks like he's reminiscing about the good old days before all the chaos took place. But anyways, he is a well-educated and has a small library of reference materials to assist Thorne. While investigating the murder of William R. Simonson, a member of the wealthy elite, he is definitely most likely the CEO of this company that has been just murdered. But what's quite interesting, it says this report, or there's a survey that is done, the classified Soylent Oceanographic Survey report from 2015 to 2019. This report was found in Simonson's apartment. This is the CEO of Soylent Green. Roth's research reveals Simonson was a member of the board of Soylent. Thorne tells his lieutenant Hatcher that he suspects an assassination. Nothing had been stolen from the apartment, security was absent, and the perpetrator used a meat hook instead of a gun to make it look like Simonson was killed in a burglary. So as we keep going, we'll see that something quite interesting later on. Governor Satini closes the investigation, but Thorne ignores this, and the Soylent Corporation dispatches Simonson's murder to kill Thorne. He tracks Thorne to a ration distribution center where police officers are providing security. It's assisted suicide at a government clinic. So we can see that possibly Soylent Green is made from human remains. As we keep going, it says Thorne rushes to stop him, but he's trying to get good old Mother Nature worship in there. Before dying, Roth tells Thorne his discovery and begs him to expose the truth. Thorne boards a human disposal truck to the disposal center, just like what we saw here. Human disposal truck. Okay, you can see that right there in the picture, the poster for Soylent Green, humans being disposed and being used for their remains, where he sees the human corpses converted into Soylent Green, but it is spotted and has to flee from there. So this is the secret of Soylent, article that I've shown many times about this human population growth and climate change nonsense. And, you know, this is supposedly science, even though in my opinion, most of science today is really pseudoscience. It's not even real, but they use this term science just to push on to us as if some educated person is backing this up, so people just blindly believe it. But it says the largest single threat to the ecology and biodiversity of the planet in the decades to come will be global climate disruption due to the buildup of human-generated greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. People around the world are beginning to address the problem by reducing their carbon footprint through less consumption and better technology. But sustainable human population growth can overwhelm these efforts, leading us to conclude that we not only need smaller footprints, but fewer feet. So right there, talking about depopulation, getting rid of people. How do you have fewer feet without having fewer people?
Ladies and gentlemen, the origins of the environmental movement as we see it began back in 1968 when the Club of Rome was formed. The Club of Rome has been described as a crisis think tank which specialises in crisis creation. The main purpose of this think tank was to formulate a crisis that would unite the world and condition us to the idea of global solutions to local problems. In a document called The First Global Revolution, authored by Alexander King and Bertrand Schneider, on pages 104 and 105, it stated, "In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers, of course, will be caused by human intervention that will require a global response." That's the origin of global warming, ladies and gentlemen. In 1992, former President of the United States, George Bush Sr. said, "Effective execution of Agenda 21 will require a profound reorientation of human society, unlike anything the world has ever experienced. A major shift in the priorities of both governments and individuals, and an unprecedented redeployment of human and financial resources. This shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action will be integrated into individual and collective decision-making at every level." In 1992, Maurice Strong, Secretary General of the UN Earth Summit and member of the Club of Rome, said, "It is clear that current lifestyles and consumption patterns of the affluent middle class, involving high meat intake, consumption of large amounts of frozen and convenience foods, use of fossil fuels, ownership of motor vehicles, small electrical appliances, home and workplace air conditioning, and suburban housing are not sustainable." Put those statements together with the previous one, and it must become clear that Agenda 21 is about controlling every aspect of our lives: how we eat, what we eat, how much we eat, how we move around, food production, the amount of food, and where we even live. Dixie Ray, former Washington State Governor and Assistant Secretary for Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs, stated, "Agenda 21 seeks to establish a mechanism for transferring the wealth from citizens to the third world. Fear of environmental crisis would be used to create a world government and UN central direction. From a report in the 1976 UN's Habitat 1 conference, land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset, controlled by individuals and subject to the pressures and inefficiencies of the market. Private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth, therefore contributes to social injustice. In 1972, the Club of Rome published the alarmist Limits to Growth document, warning of worldwide overpopulation, the need for sustainable development. This was the beginning of the slow process of social engineering and programming people to accept that the planet is struggling to sustain life. On the 8th of October 1973, the New York Times reported a quote from Ted Turner, also Club of Rome: "The social experiment in China under Chairman Mao's leadership is one of the most important and successful in human history." In 1987, Mikhail Gorbachev, also a member of Club of Rome, said, "We are moving toward a new world order, the world of communism, and we shall never turn off that road." He also quoted in 1996 Monetary and Economic Review on page 5, "The environmental crisis will be the international disaster that will unlock the new world order, one world government." In 1992 came the Earth Summit, which produced the document called the Earth Charter. This document was co-written by Maurice Strong, long-time globalist, elitist, member of Club of Rome, and Mikhail Gorbachev. Both Strong and Gorbachev stated that it was hoped that this document would be adopted as the new 10 Commandments, with environmentalism as the new one world religion. Out of this summit came Agenda 21. Ted Turner, who was also a member of the Club of Rome, was quoted as saying in 1996, "The total population of 250 to 300 million people is ideal. That means a reduction of 95% from present levels would be even more ideal." In 1998, the Baltimore Sun reported on July the 7th, most of Ted Turner's first donation to the UN of $22 million went to programs that seek to stall population. Another goal of the depopulation process is that the upcoming generation will submit to sterilisation to save Mother Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, everything I've said here tonight can be verified by document searches, and it is now time for us all to take off our blinkers and encourage our neighbours to take off their blinkers.
So this is the same kind of propaganda, lies coming from the science community that basically it is mankind's fault. But if you really look into it, you will see that the science community are nothing more than Luciferians.
We need to meet a new constraint, and that constraint has to do with CO2. CO2 is warming the planet, and the equation on CO2 is actually a very straightforward one. If you sum up the CO2 that gets emitted, that leads to a temperature increase. And that temperature increase leads to some very negative effects. The effects on the weather, perhaps worse, the indirect effects in that the natural ecosystems can't adjust to these rapid changes, and so you get ecosystem collapses. Now, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide every year, over 26 billion tons. For each American, it's about 20 tons. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
I found this very interesting website called Overpopulation is a Myth, but he quotes people that says that, doctors couldn't cure things, or that he says here, did Paul Elric really say that famines would devastate humanity in the 1970s? Yep, in his 1968 work, The Population Bomb, Enrich stated, "The battle to feed all of humanity is over. In the 1970s, the world will undergo famines. Hundreds of millions of people will starve to death in spite of any crash programs embarked up until now." So, you know, they put out all this fear propaganda. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't people starving in the world, but they definitely majorly overinflated it. Then he goes on to talk about the UNFPA. How do they profit from fear? The United Nations Fund for Population Activities was founded in 1969, the year after Ehrlich published The Population Bomb, which is this book that he's talking about here. So, of course, the good old Luciferian UN goes and forms something regarding this. They have been involved in programs with governments around the world who deny their women the right to choose the number and spacing of their children. Their complicit work with the infamous one-child policy mandated by the government of the People's Republic of China, uncovered by an investigation of the U.S. State Department in 2001, led to the U.S. to pull its funding. So, you know, again, they're showing how this overpopulation is really quite nonsense, that really the entire world could really live right in the state of Texas. There's so much of land to go around. There is no such thing as overpopulation. But really, when we look at these nonsense SDGs from the UN, the Sustainable Development Goals, when they talk about things like no poverty and zero hunger, you know, these are things that, again, this Soylent Green movie likes to propagate, you know, talking about overcrowding, pollution, global warming, greenhouse gas nonsense. So these goals came out in 2015, I believe. So how can we have zero poverty and zero hunger, good health care for everyone, gender equality, this kind of nonsense, you know, climate change, action or responsible consumption and production, all these kinds of things, if we are not getting rid of people? I believe all of this climate change is based on Luciferian doctrines, which are put in stone or etched in stone on the infamous Georgia Guidestones.
I will show you on the Georgia Guidestones exactly where you can find the adversary. So the first commandment on the Georgia Guidestones is to maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. And nature is not there's the adversary right there. That's why Freemasons can tell you their secrets in books, because they don't think you understand them in the first place, so they're not afraid to tell you what their secrets are. But if you know who they're talking about, then there's a problem for them.
For beauty is eternal, and we bow to beauty everlasting. For lasting happiness, return to one alone, and she surrounds you now. Great nature, refuge of the weary heart, and only balm for breasts that have been bruised. She hath cool hands for every favored brow, and gentlest silence for the troubled soul. The counsels are most wise. She healeth well, having such ministries as calm and sleep. She is ever faithful. Other friends may fail, but seek ye her in any quiet place. Smiling, she will rise and give to you her kiss. So must ye come as children. Little children that believe nor ever doubt her beauty and her faith, nor deem her tenderness can change or die.
That so many of us are here today is a recognition that the threat from climate change is serious, it is urgent, and it is growing.
It all sounds very green. The Environment Secretary Ed Davey has been urging other countries to get serious about tackling climate change.
Dear next president, climate change is the most serious problem facing humankind.
Yeah, we are here all together because we know that the world needs to fight climate change with much, much greater seriousness.
Madam Vice President, you're in charge of the environment for the Iranian government. That's your portfolio. How serious is your government when it comes to tackling climate change, taking serious measures?
Yes, our government is very serious because we adopted a low-carbon economy last year in the government, and we started working in that direction.
The Earth's climate is now changing faster than at any point in the history of modern civilization, primarily as a result of human activities. And the climate change could kill thousands of Americans and cost the U.S. economy hundreds of billions of dollars. Pretty serious. And you seriously may have missed it because even though the report was supposed to come out in December, the Trump administration released it Friday.
Well, my message to President Trump would be very simple, that the rest of the world is very serious about climate change. So are the scientists. The vast majority of scientists are also very serious about climate change. President Macron of France are calling us in a very urgent way to take climate change seriously because the consequences are unthinkable.
I'm here today to say that climate change constitutes a serious threat to global security.
We hear it so much that it feels like a buzzword, but it is far from it. Climate change is a real and serious issue. But isn't the climate always changing?
America's on the verge of technological breakthroughs that will enable us to live our lives less dependent on oil. And these technologies will help us be better stewards of the environment. And they will help us to confront the serious challenge of global climate change.
Around the world, it was the warmest ever recorded. And the fact that the climate is changing has very serious implications for the way we live now.
Well, scientists say climate change is getting worse, and there could be serious consequences for our planet in the next 20 years.
We have spoken about this many times, and the very first tenet of these guidestones clearly says to maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. So when you think about that for just a minute, you will see that 500 million is really 6.5 billion less than what we have today as the current population of the world. So that would mean that if there are 7 or even 7.5, possibly 8, but let's say 7.5 billion people on the earth right now, then that means in order to maintain 500 million, that means 7 billion people have to die in order to accomplish that goal, to have zero poverty and whatever other nonsense that they want to push onto us and making it seem like it's a great thing. But really, 7 billion people need to die. So I don't see how that is any good to you and to me. I see the elites benefiting from this and keeping a population of 500 million so that they can use as their slaves, basically, which we've seen in many different movies. So I honestly believe this is where this nonsense all comes from. It is Luciferian Mother Earth worship nonsense to its core.
You know, Logan, you wonder a lot, too much for a Sandman.
Enter the carousel. This is the time of renewal.
I've never killed anyone in my life. Sandmen terminate runners.
Be strong, and you will be renewed. Do you identify this word, sanctuary?
Isn't that what you do? Kill?
Killed? Why do you use that word?
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says it's time to get serious about keeping ambitions high on climate action and on building resilience.
With science forecasting a dramatic rise in both the frequency and severity of disasters, it's time to get serious about keeping ambitions high on climate action and on building resilience and reducing disaster risk.
As I said in a press conference yesterday, we have seen unprecedented mobilization of the world community. People are taking it seriously, and we have a chance actually to solve this problem if we act forcefully and quickly.
And you have made it a serious part of your agenda. And you did say in the State of the Union that no challenge poses a greater threat to future generations than climate change.
David Miller joins me here in Toronto. He is an ambassador for inclusive climate action at C40. What's your reaction to the numbers in this report that we're actually double the global rate?
Well, it's grim, it's serious. If you've been involved with this issue for a long time, as I have, it's sadly not a surprise.
Al Gore is here with us in Studio 57, and we're very pleased to have him. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So tell me, in 10 years, what has changed that alarms you?
Well, there have been two big changes, Charlie, in the last decade. Number one, the climate-related extreme weather events have become way more serious, way more common. Superstorm Sandy here flooded the War Memorial 9/11 site, for example.
And we did a movie breakdown of this Logan's Run movie, which again was from quite a while ago. It was, of course, it got the good old number 23 in there, as they love to show, and people were not allowed to live until past 30, I believe, in this movie. So yet again, you know, it is a dystopian movie where population and the consumption of resources are maintained in equilibrium by killing everyone who reaches the age of 30. So yet again, population control, or basically killing off people, telling them they cannot live past the age of 30. And again, same propaganda. Now, this movie was from 1976, so just 3 years after Soylent Green did Logan's Run come out. So already, again, propagating this New World Order Luciferian depopulation doctrine of climate change. And as I mentioned before, we did a movie breakdown on The Thinning. And of course, it was about the same kind of thing of overpopulation, of climate change, of resources being put out or being cut down. And here we have in the plot, in the year 2039, Earth's resources are nearly depleted by overpopulation. So the UN declares that all nations must cut their population by 5% each year. While some countries remove their elderly and others enforce a one-child policy, in the United States, the answer is 10 to 241, or more commonly known as the thinning, a standardized test taken from 1st grade to 12th grade. Those who pass continue to the next grade, while those who fail are executed.
If I call your name, I want you to stand up and follow the leader. I'm going to play a song while we grade the test. Kevin Barrow.
Nicole Chung.
Marissa Gomez.
Nathan Hill.
Mark Salazar.
Come with me.
Sarah Foster.
No!
Okay, let's
no!
go.
No! 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 Please stop! No!
Congratulations. The rest of you passed.
Again, total depopulation agenda. They want to push onto humanity that it is our fault, that the whole of the earth, we're all going to die, that if man just continues to populate and reproduce, that we're just going to kill ourselves just by the very air that we're breathing out, which is honestly, in my opinion, extreme lunacy to the highest degree. I cannot stress to you how crazy that kind of thinking is, but really, people are being so desensitized and are actually believing this kind of nonsense and really think that climate change is real, but it's really just not. And if you look into HAARP, you will see that for yourself, that it is the elites, the Luciferians, the military-industrial complex that is causing climate change through their HAARP technology. And if you look into that, you will see it for yourself. But let's talk about other movies. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of other movies that have been talking about the same thing, so you can see for yourself that this propaganda has been going on for a while. Some of you will remember a movie called 12 Monkeys starring Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt and Madeline Stowe. And according to the movie, it was about, again, population control, because in a future world devastated by disease, a convict is sent back in time to gather information about the man-made virus that wiped out most of the human population. So again, man-made. Think about the CDC, the WHO, the Luciferian government agencies. This is man-made. It is caused by these elites doing this kind of nonsense, and of course they kill off a vast chunk of the human population. So yet again, more depopulation agenda propaganda right in our faces. And of course, many of you will remember the series of Resident Evil movies and what happened in those movies. In all 6 of them, it is all about depopulation, at least in my opinion. It is yet again about a virus that spreads throughout the world, killing people, making them into zombies. So again, total decimation of the human population. And so in my opinion, it basically is about depopulation once again. Another movie along the same lines, World War Z, or if you're an American, World War Z. Former United Nations employee Jerry Lane traverses the world in a race against time to stop the zombie pandemic that is toppling armies and governments and threatening to destroy humanity. Okay, humanity itself. So again, depopulation, killing off humanity. This is what the Luciferians, who are inspired by Lucifer himself, he just wants to steal, kill, and destroy, exactly what the Bible claims that he does, which is exactly what this is, just killing off people. This is what World War Z was about. Resident Evil, 12 Monkeys, basically a virus that kills off the human population. How many remember a movie called In Time with Justin Timberlake? I actually quite enjoyed this movie. It was a very fascinating concept, but yet again, it's about, in my opinion, depopulation, controlling the reproduction of people, and it's in a future where people stop aging at 25 but are engineered to live only 1 more year, having the means to buy your way out of the situation at a shot at immortal youth. So it's the rich elites who can live for hundreds of years. They have the money and the means to keep buying more time. But people like the character that Justin Timberlake played, this Will Salas, they pretty much only have a day to play with, and they need to survive. They are survivors. They are scrounging for more time. So really the general public basically gets killed off, or they basically do not have the means to survive and they just die. But the elites live on.
Something to have more time in my hand than hours in the day.
Where's the rest?
Never met the quota.
My units are up from last week.
So is the quota.
2 hours.
It's always been an hour.
Now it's 2. Price went up.
It's a 2-hour walk. I have an hour and a half.
Then you better run.
The poor are meant to die. It's how the system works. What the hell's that supposed to mean?
You really don't know, do you?
How old are you in real time? 28.
I'm 105. The truth is, there's more than enough time for everyone. There are men with 1 million years while most live day to day. For a few to be immortal, many must die.
So it's all about, again, population control and the elites holding all the cards. So same kind of thing that we are seeing here. And of course, another movie, in my opinion, that addresses the depopulation stuff is good old Tom Cruise and Oblivion back in 2013. Of course, the title speaks for itself. But according to the plot, it says that the year is 2077, 60 years after a war with extraterrestrials, so they're pushing on the good old alien agenda here, has devastated Earth in 2017. In my mind, that totally talks about depopulation, major population reduction, and the rest of humanity has relocated to Saturn's moon Titan. Go figure, Saturn, which is basically the pagan god Kronos, Satan, whom they worship, and Titan, I believe, is a reference to the fallen angels having relations with the daughters of men and creating a super race of beings, the Titans, the giants, Okay, so again, same pagan, devilish, satanic, Luciferian stuff going on here, where again, people have been decimated and relocated. All right, so they want to get rid of us. This is the plan of the Illuminati. And of course, let's get into a children's movie by Disney. But of course, we all know who are awake what Disney's all about. Good old Wall-E. And this is about a movie in the distant future. What I find quite interesting is when you go down here, it actually says in a distant but not so unrealistic future. So right in our faces, they're telling us that this is not so unrealistic. It's most likely going to happen or could possibly happen. It's not so unrealistic of a future where mankind has abandoned Earth because it has become covered with trash from products sold by the powerful multinational by and large corporation. So just like Soylent Green, it's all about the company, all about making money, and of course they have trashed the entire earth, and Wall-E is a garbage collecting robot that has been left to clean up the mess. So basically Earth is like a place for cockroaches or a place for bugs. It is basically a garbage dump. And, you know, again, they are pushing this climate change, this, you know, destruction of the earth, garbage everywhere, and just mass pollution. Same kind of propaganda and subliminal messaging right in our faces from a children's movie back in 2008. So Wall-E is nothing different than what is going on. And you know, I really want to get into this whole, how they called Soylent Green or talked about the world population and this whole eating of human remains. This is something that we are seeing in real life today. Many of you are aware of Marina Abramovich and her absolutely disgusting spirit cooking, how she basically shows people being eaten, even though it may seem fake to many people and may even seem like a joke. These are this is no laughing matter. This is something that is very serious. Here you can see her at one of her supposed festivals. They have what looks like a human corpse inside all of this blood. Now, this is most likely food products that is on this body, whether this body is fake or real, but these people are eating from this thing. But this really should be disturbing to most people, that what these people are doing here. Of course, you got good old Lady Gaga here, and again, this is something that we have been shown many times. And you know, they seem to really promote this bloodlust Baal practice. You've got on here with a sharp knife, cut deeply into the middle finger of your left hand and eat the pain. So really Luciferian stuff. You've got the Baphomet right here. She's holding this bloody goat head. These people are Luciferian to the core. You know, somebody once mentioned to me they find it fascinating that this Marina Abramovich, she is 70 years old, yet she looks like she's 20 or 30. So possibly is it through these blood rituals that she is doing that is keeping her young? You know, God only knows, Abba Yahweh knows what these people are doing, but the same kind of thing is being propagated over and over again. The eating of human remains. We've done a video on Santa Clarita Diet, and many of you are aware of this ridiculous show that completely glorifies cannibalism, the eating of human flesh. Drew Barrymore, who basically is a zombie, and the only way for her to stay alive is to eat the remains of humans, and her husband just goes along with it. And this is not a horror, of course. This is a comedy, a sitcom, that these kinds of things are being propagated through humor, through these TV shows and movies, and it is not a laughing matter because people are starting to accept this kind of stuff. And we talked about, even in another video, about this movie Raw, about this girl who basically was a vegan, but then she basically becomes a cannibal. This is basically a cannibal sex movie, as they've dubbed it, but really you can see that this girl literally becomes like a demon. She's biting into even her boyfriend here. You can see the blood running. She's biting into this other, I would say, colleague of hers. So really, again, totally depicting cannibalism, and in my opinion really promoting this kind of thing. So with that wafer that we spoke about for Soylent Green that was made from human remains, here we're seeing in a more blatant kind of depiction the same kind of thing. People eating each other, people surviving by the blood of another human. This is just all out Baal practice, what Abba Yahweh forbid his people Israel to do. And the same thing is happening now. And before the judgment came to Israel when they were shipped off to Babylon and the armies of their enemies came. These are the same kinds of things that they were doing. All of these Baal practices, sacrificing their children in the fire, all this kind of thing. And so we are on the verge, I would say, of major judgment that is about to come. So, talking about this climate change, which is all leading to the same kind of thing, this is the lie that is being propagated like crazy all over the place. We see this nonsense, in so many different forms. I just showed you quite a few movies that talk about the same kind of thing, but really it is such a lie. And, when you know the true cosmology of our world, I know many people still believe in the globe, and I'm not going to make fun of you or mock you, but really, please, I would encourage you to look into the claims of flat earth. It is very fascinating. I believe that the Bible confirms the true cosmology of our world being a flat circular plane under a dome firmament. And when you think about that and realize the truth, you will see that climate change is such a farce that they cannot have climate change. They cannot have an alien deception. They cannot have this global warming and evolution if we are living in an enclosed system, which I fully believe the Bible talks about. So really, climate change, again, is a farce. You can't have evolution. You can't have climate change. You can't have the aliens coming, because there's no such thing as planets and galaxies. Those things that you see up in the sky, they are lights in the firmament that Abba Yahweh has placed there in the waters above. So don't be fooled by what mainstream science is telling you. But again, just look into it. But climate change is definitely a farce that has been pushed onto us like crazy.
But we're going to begin with what's being called Climate Day over at the White House. President Joe Biden signed executive orders aimed at tackling climate change, calling it an existential threat to the planet. Our White House correspondent Karen Travis joins us now for more. Karen, so what's going on? What do these orders, the executive orders, do?
Yeah, this is executive action that follows big things that President Biden did as soon as he took office last week. Of course, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord and canceling that permit for the Keystone XL pipeline. So this is Climate Day here at the White House. But as you said, Joe Biden also framed this as Jobs Day, because they say this is not just about clean air and clean water, but this is also about creating jobs, good, clean energy jobs. It was a point that several officials today were really emphasizing. So just a couple bullet points on what these executive orders do that the president signed today. One is that it's going to freeze new oil and gas leasing on federal lands. That was something that Biden promised on the campaign trail. He's directing the federal government to purchase electric vehicles that the government would use in its massive fleet. He's looking to establish a civilian climate corps. That was something we heard today from John Kerry and from Gina McCarthy, who's going to be his domestic climate advisor. It's also going to set a goal of conserving at least 30% of the country's lands and oceans, directing federal agencies to look at the impact that the climate is having on disadvantaged communities, and would also put 40% of relevant federal investment towards those disadvantaged areas. So that is something that they say is so critical to address, because this is beyond just an environmental issue. This is a health issue. And we heard President Biden say today that for all of the talk about the COVID crisis, this is another health crisis, kind of a more quiet, long-lasting, long-term crisis that his administration says they have to tackle.
It is a complete lie, and any real scientist will tell you that climate change is just nothing but nonsense. It is not real science, and that has been disproven many times, and that NASA and the Luciferian scientific community are fudging the numbers in order to promote their nonsense. And you'll remember the good old 2015 United Nations Climate Change Conference that took place back in November and December of 2015. And what I found quite interesting about this conference, to me, it was a bunch of Luciferians all getting together to ratify this thing. But, what was hung on the Eiffel Tower, this big ball kind of structure that was put in, hanging right basically in this section of the Eiffel Tower. But what can you see right in your face right there? You've got the good old all-seeing eye on top of the pyramid, and it's saying Earth Crisis. They are completely showing you that this is Luciferian to the core. This is none other than the New World Order trying to rise up, trying to push their same Luciferian Mother Earth worship nonsense onto the people of this world. And they are just fooling people into believing that the climate is changing, that we are responsible for it, and that if we don't do something, we're all going to die. But really, it is just a farce to hide the judgments of Abba Yahweh that is coming very soon. According to the book of Revelation, the devil is trying to counterfeit those things so that when they do really start coming, they will chalk it up to climate change, because that's what they have programmed people to believe. So the judgments that are coming, you can see the Luciferians that are all behind this stuff. That is what they are doing. People who don't know what is going on don't recognize these symbols. It's like a hidden language. If you don't know the language, you can't read the symbols. And so when people see this, they have no idea what they're seeing. They might think, I think I've seen that kind of thing before, but they really don't know the meaning behind it. But really, it is the Luciferians that are behind this whole thing. And wouldn't you know, the Catholic Church, which in my opinion is basically the central place of paganism. It is the universal place of putting all paganism together. And this Pope, who is a very evil man in my opinion, they have a website, can you believe, called the Global Catholic Climate Movement. And it's all about climate change. There's even a quote from good old Pope Francis on climate change. There is a clear, definitive, and ineluctable ethical imperative to act. So he is propagating this climate change nonsense like crazy. He is basically the high priest of climate change, I would say, apart from all the other ones like Al Gore or even Barack Obama. But again, I will leave links so you can look at this for yourself. But they are totally pushing this whole climate change nonsense. Of course, you got the good old pagan beads there that they're using, showing the Catholic pagan doctrine and all this kind of thing that is going on here. And really, Pope Francis is one of the key figures in this whole climate change. They are Luciferians. They are Gaia worshippers. They worship Isis. They worship Horus. They worship Set. They worship Tammuz. They worship Nimrod. Okay, they worship the beast. They worship the dragon. These people are not to be trusted. And sadly, just as the Bible says that Lucifer masquerades as an angel of light, so people think this man is very innocent. But really, the Roman Catholic Church, to me, in my mind, is Mystery Babylon. They are propagating all of this nonsense and bringing about all this false kind of stuff all over the place. I believe that the Jesuits are also responsible for the teachings of evolution, for the teachings of the globe, for the teachings of even dinosaurs and many other things that have come from these Jesuits, and even the aliens, and how Pope Francis openly says that he'll baptize aliens. And now, of course, they're propagating this climate change, and he's put out even an encyclical to the Catholic world to go along with this climate change. And, when he came to the U.S. A couple of years ago in 2015, you would think that if he's a servant of Yeshua, that he would talk about getting saved. He would talk about salvation. But no, one of his main concerns was addressing climate change.
Honesty, courage, and responsibility, 3 qualities the Pope says he wants everyone on earth to show in the battle against climate change. As he publishes a 192-page letter ostensibly to bishops, in which he says humans are ruining their own home with global warming. For more, I'm joined from St. Peter's Square by our correspondent Philip William. Thanks very much for joining us. Philip, tell us a little bit more about what the Pope's been saying and why he's saying it now.
Well, the Pope has tackled his critics head on. He's come out very clearly to say that climate change deniers are wrong, and the science shows that human activity is contributing to global warming. And he also comes out very strongly to say that we need not only to worry about nature and animals that we share the earth with, but also we need to worry about the poorest of humanity. We can't allow them to be left behind. They're the people who pollute least, but suffer the consequences of pollution most. So the people who've accused the Pope of being a Marxist are also tackled head-on in this papal document.
He may not be a Marxist, but he's certainly more than willing to comment publicly on political issues. He's been addressing his comments really to the world's richest countries.
That's absolutely right, and it's clear in this document as well that he's preaching not only to the world's 1.2 billion Catholics and to other believers in religious faith, but he's also speaking to the world's public at large. He says that religions, not only Christianity, have a contribution to make to this debate. And he enters the debate very forcefully, but also respectfully of other opinions, saying there's a dialogue that must go forward. So a very important document from the Pope, the first that he's written entirely on his own, and in a sense a manifesto of his entire papacy.
So why should he be promoting that? But when you see what he really is, he is totally a Luciferian that is promoting Luciferian doctrine. So this is a lie to the core. I find this meme, or this little cartoon meme quite interesting. You've got this basically Catholic bishop here, or what looks like a Catholic bishop, and you've got basically a torture guy here and a scientist who's being tortured. And he says, okay, I believe mankind caused global warming. Very well, says the bishop, give the heretic back his research funds. So to me, this is kind of a funny way, well, I shouldn't say it's even really funny, but a way of depicting the Catholic Church and the high priests of climate change, the Luciferians, all these people who are basically forcing this onto even possibly the science community. Most likely, many scientists are being either bribed or they're being threatened to push this climate change onto the people, so that as long as the scientists are saying it, then it must be true, and people will just blindly believe it. Let's not forget good old David Rockefeller, another well-known Luciferian and New World Order person, who says, has been quoted as saying, all we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the New World Order. And that's right from the mouth of David Rockefeller.
New World Order. A New World Order. A New World Order. New World Order. New World Order.
A New World Order.
A New World Order.
New World Order. New World Order. And a New World Order.
A New World Order.
New World Order.
New World Order.
New World Order.
A new world order. Need for a new world order.
A new world order.
He openly talks about having a one world government. He openly spoke about having a major crisis. So could it be that the major crisis that is coming will be one of the big steps to depopulation?
To the biosphere we live in. And herein lies the dilemma that we all face. Let me illustrate. Improved public health has caused the world's infant mortality rate to decline by 60% over the last 40 years. In the same period, the world's average life expectancy has increased from 46 years in 1950s to 63 years today. This is a development which, as individuals, we can only applaud. However, the result of these positive measures is a world population that has risen during the same short period of time geometrically to almost 6 billion people, and could easily exceed 8 billion by the year 2020. The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident. Growing exploitation of the world's supply of energy and water is a matter of deep concern, and the toxic byproducts of widespread industrialization have increased atmospheric pollution to dangerous levels. Unless nations will agree to work together to tackle these cross-border challenges posed by population growth, overconsumption of resources, and environmental degradation, the prospects for a decent life on our planet will be threatened. The recent UN meeting in Cairo is appropriately focused on one of these key issues, population growth. But the controversies which have erupted at the conference illustrate the problem of coming to grips with issues that are deeply divisive and which have a profound moral dimension. The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population and stimulating economic development in a manner that is sensitive to religious and moral considerations. Economic growth is, of course, an inevitable corollary of a growing population and is essential to improve standards of living. But without careful coordination, unrestrained economic growth poses further threats to our environment. This was a major subject of discussion at the conference in Rio de Janeiro on the environment 2 years ago. The focus then was on sustainable growth and global development. It was pointed out at the conference that growth is most efficiently managed by the private sector.
Just like what is seen in the Georgia Guidestones, just as what all of these Luciferians love to promote, they all think they're going to have their golden age, that they're going to be the ones that repopulate, or they're going to be the ones that rule this world. They have been lied to by Lucifer, by the devil, and they have fallen for his lie. They think that he is the light, but he is just not. But again, like I said, or as David Rockefeller has said, they want their major crisis. Possibly that will be a major depopulation event that will usher in the New World Order. So I also find it quite fascinating from the movie Star Wars, even though we just did a video on it. You'll remember from episode 7 in The Force Awakens, we were talking about good old Soylent Green here at the beginning of this video. Isn't it quite interesting that Rey, when she had to go basically get her meal for the day, she would go and sell whatever she could find, whatever she had collected on the basically that junk place of a planet. She would take it to this, crazy alien being here and exchange it for this weird kind of green kind of veg meat or something that would turn into like some kind of bread. But yet again, was this a depiction, in our day and age of good old Soylent Green that we saw back in a movie from the 70s? So again, same kind of propaganda, the earth being decimated. People are basically surviving by the skin of their teeth. They are selling whatever they can in order just to buy food. And they show this same kind of green kind of product. So I just found that quite interesting. Is something big about to happen this year? Obviously, I don't know. That remains to be seen. We need to trust in Yeshua HaMashiach, the true Messiah and Savior of this world. The Bible is clear that the earth was made for man and man for the earth. We are the ones that are supposed to populate. Abba Yahweh says to be fruitful and multiply. So really, this climate change and depopulation is a Luciferian doctrine. He wants to go against everything that Abba Yahweh stands for, that his word has clearly said. He wants to turn everything upside down. So when Abba Yahweh has told us to reproduce and multiply, to be fruitful and multiply, the devil wants to tell us through his Luciferian agencies, that there's too many people, that we need to depopulate, that it's mankind's fault for all the carbon dioxide and climate change nonsense, when in reality, they are the ones, the Luciferian companies are the ones who are destroying this earth. Don't fall for the lies. Put your trust in Yeshua. He is the one that can save you from this crazy world that has the signs all over the place that this world, this elite establishment is coming to an end, that Yeshua is coming to reign this earth, and I pray that you put your trust in him before it is too late. Again, do not believe anything that I say. I encourage you to do your own research, but as always, please be aware of what is being shown to us in plain sight.
We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal.
Investigators are trying to identify more of the insurrectionists. Their pictures now splashed across D.C. bus stops. The FBI has just released these new photos of a man authorities say is seen in this video pinning police officer Daniel Hodges.
They ripped my mask off, stole my equipment, beat me up, sprayed me with everything.
You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube, you eat like the tube, you raise your children like the tube, you even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
It remains unclear why there was such a breakdown in the federal response on January 6th. Multiple U.S. House committees have announced this weekend a congressional review as authorities here prepare for a tense few days.
For yourself endangers the common good. Body contact causes suffering. Facial expression is excessive. Solitary confinement is safe. Minding your health is excessive. Closeness is dangerous. Sterility is essential. Aloneness is the answer. Restrictions are freedom. Restrictions are freedom. Restrictions are freedom. The government is your family. The new normal is here. Pharmaceutical companies love you. Everyone loves the pharmaceutical companies. Vaccination is charity.
Ordering a pizza in 2022. Caller. Is this Pizza Hut? Google. No sir, it's Google Pizza. Caller. I must have dialed the wrong number, sorry. Google. No sir, Google bought Pizza Hut last month. Caller. Okay, I would like to order a pizza. Google. Do you want your usual, sir? Caller. My usual? You know me? Google. According to our calorie data sheet, the last 12 times you called, you ordered an extra large pizza with 3 cheeses, sausage, pepperoni, mushrooms, and meatballs on the thick crust. Caller. Super. That's what I'll have. Google. May I suggest that this time you order a pizza with ricotta, arugula, sun-dried tomatoes, and olives on a whole wheat gluten-free thin crust? Caller. What? I don't want a vegetarian pizza. Google. Your cholesterol is not good, sir. Caller. How the hell do you know that? Google. Well, we cross-reference your home phone number with your medical records. We have the result of your blood tests for the last 7 years. Caller. Okay, but I do not want your rotten vegetarian pizza. I already take medication for my cholesterol. Google. Excuse me, sir, but you have not taken your medication regularly. According to our database, you purchased only a box of 30 cholesterol tablets once at Lloyd's Pharmacy 4 months ago. Caller. I bought more from another pharmacy. Google. That doesn't show on your credit card statement. Caller. I paid in cash. Google. But you did not withdraw enough cash according to your bank statement. Caller. I have other sources of cash. Google. That doesn't show on your latest tax returns, unless you bought them using an undeclared income source, which is against the law. Caller. What the heck? Google. I'm sorry, sir. We use such information only with the sole intention of helping you. Caller. Enough already. I'm sick to death of Google, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and all the others. I'm going to an island without the internet, TV, where there is no phone service, and no one to watch me or spy on me. Google. I understand, sir, but you need to renew your passport first. It expired 6 weeks ago.
What are you doing with the rest of your life?
Catching up on some me time, find God.
My soul loves Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. My soul, it loves Jesus. Oh, yes it does. Oh, yes it does. Oh, yeah, my soul. My soul. Over in the midnight hour, my soul. He speaks to my soul. Tells me everything is gonna be alright.
Jesus set me free. I hope he set you free.